the DMF Podcast, where you're going to get to hear conversations with community leaders, charity spotlights, and information on upcoming DMF events. I'm your host, Whitney Isaacson, and today I got to sit down with Lexi Kahnk. Lexi is a pediatric occupational therapist at Valley Christian Counseling, and she gets to help her kids reach their fullest potential. Today, Lexi shared with me about how screens are impacting our kids in this digital age. I think you're really going to enjoy this conversation with Lexi. Let's get into it. Welcome, Lexi, to the podcast. We are so excited to have you here today. So kind of jumping right into it, as a pediatric occupational therapist, what are you most passionate about in your work?
Wow, it's just such a fun job that I get to do, but looking big picture, the opportunities that families invite me into when they're at the point of saying, I need help, and they're coming into my office, it feels like such an honor and a privilege to say, yeah, let's, jump in together. Let's see what's going on. It requires vulnerability. It requires the ability to say we're ready. But I love knowing that there's something that we can do. And I love the problem solving part of it. I love the creative part of it. The recognition that where we're at right now is not where we want to be. And so the process of, all right, let's kind of pick it apart, figure out what's important to the family, what's important to the child, putting the pieces together about how our body works together between our muscles and our bones and our nervous system, how our relationships matter, how our environment matters. So there's just so many pieces, and it's such a individual, specialized reality that we all function in, that there's not a formula for being a successful human. And that's pretty cool to me.
So for people not familiar with maybe occupational therapists, at what point do people come to see you?
Yeah, that's a great question. And actually, when I'm talking with families who are considering seeking out services, whether it's occupational therapy or something else, one of the biggest things that I encourage families to consider is their quality of life. So typically in my position, I'm receiving a child, and then, the family accompanies them in the journey of treatment. But really the quality of life of whatever they're recognizing as an issue generally affects the whole family unit. So if it's something that they're dealing with that, is affecting the child, and the child's having to miss out on group activities at school, or is being consistently left out of, things that their peers are getting to do. Maybe the family is making accommodations so frequently that they're missing out on things that are important to them, like being out in the community, participating in activities for their other kids in the household, those types of things. So when there's something missing that's really causing them to say, this isn't where we want to be as a family, and we feel like we're out of options. We've tried everything. We've done everything that we can. That's when it's a good time to ask for help.
So you're a pediatric occupational therapist at Valley Christian Counseling. Mm-hmm. Can you kind of explain your role at Valley and what that area of interest looks like as an OT?
Yeah, it's been so cool to see what has opened up there. I've been a provider in the community for several years, but the reality is that Valley Christian Counseling as an organization has come to recognize that emotional health and emotional well-being is more than just, quote unquote, just the counseling approach, the talk therapy. It's about how your body functions. It's about nutrition. It's about, all these pieces working together. And so I have the just really cool privilege of being able to bring occupational therapy, pediatric occupational therapy specifically, to the team at Valley for the first time. And as they're continuing to acknowledge the services that can benefit an individual, which therefore benefits our community. So seeing those things really take root and how the collaboration happens between providers, between disciplines, between these different lenses and frameworks towards our common goal of being well and good, it really has been cool to bring those together.
It is really cool to see your guys' team coming together and truly treating the whole person. Mm-hmm. So with that holistic therapy in mind and that approach of treating mind, body, and spirit, we're kind of seeing in our world today that we're kind of moving away from that. I feel like maybe we're not living as we are naturally created to be with the holistic pieces in mind. So what are your thoughts on that? And like, what's the ideal human conditions for us to live for our just natural human development?
Man, that's such a good question.
Such a big question.
Such a big question. So thinking about our holistic approach, like I'd mentioned already, the reality is that there's not like a magic formula that exists that says you have achieved a great quality of life once you do this list of checkbox, whatever it is. So that being said, like there's an honor that we get to have about being an individual and what our individual needs are, whether they are features of who we are or components of who we are in our community, whether it's a family system or a broader community setting. I do believe that there's a lot of choices that you can make all the time. And at this point, there's too many. And it's just this battle of, okay, so that's really cool. And there's a lot of benefits to that. I often spend time debriefing with families. Okay, that is a cool idea. What are the costs that are included with that? And not in like trying to tear things down kind of a way, but more of like considering this is something that has ripple effects, and when we're picking our battles right now with kids and with families, I really encourage parents and caregivers to think, okay, 20 years down the road, what do you hope and pray for your child? And if you are hoping and praying that they are, have certain character qualities, then what are we doing today to pour into that? So those choices can be about, of course, the things that we put into our body. The nutrition pieces are huge. And again, that's a place where we have so many choices, whether it is fast food or it is, things that we're finding in the grocery store. The choices that we have there, the choices about how we spend our time, the choices about how we build our relationships, in what ways. That has become a huge area of, there's a lot of options. You can build those digital platforms. You can build those distant connections. You can really pour into things and be connected quickly with people, but is the depth of the relationship the same quality as like the in-person features? And there's the truth too, that we really are required to get creative with how we use our time outside in this space. Is it okay if we're just kind of cold and uncomfy sometimes and we still go outside and get that vitamin D and just really enjoy the fact that we live where it snows 6 months a year. So, I think ideal is kind of tough, but it's always about costs and benefits of whatever choices align with the priorities of a family unit. Yeah,
I like how you brought the long-term mindset into it, because we're never going to be that perfect ideal condition, but we're almost strained so far away, like how you touched about the foods we put in our body, our nutrition, the chemicals in our food. We have screens and devices that are constantly distracting us. We're living more sedentary lifestyles. There's just a lot of factors against us. So we are never going to get it right. But I like how you said, it's all about, you have choices. You have choices. It's all about your decisions. So you kind of were talking about screens and devices and how we use that. How are those affecting our ideal natural human condition? How are they influencing us, and maybe specifically our kids with our brain development? If you could touch on that a little bit.
This is such a huge topic because it affects literally every area of our life. I mean, even driving here today, I was like, wow, that's a brand new, gigantic digital billboard.
Off the interstate?
Yeah, well, yeah, I was just like, wasn't there last time I drove by.
That is new. I've seen it.
Yeah, so it's just this truth that this is the screens and the advancement of technology and access to those types of interactive faces has really exploded. And I am a family member of a person who uses a device for communication. My brother has an adaptive communication system, and it has expanded his world in really cool ways. You know, he has a speech impairment and really limited verbal speech. And so ultimately, he's gone from carrying around stacks of magazines to communicate what he wants to do, where he wants to go, to being able to have a really handy, small, lightweight, versatile device to share with us. So I think there is always a time and a place to celebrate the reality that we get to step into with the advancement here. The concern I have is about what we're giving up. And in most cases in which we do have access to skills within ourselves, replacing those skills with digital platforms, whether it's communication, engaging our community, even the skills that we take into the classroom, there's some big costs there in the long run. And we're at a really critical time where the technology has outpaced our understanding of what is going to come as far as consequences, like the negative consequences here. What are we going to be facing in 20 years that is going to reflect that we really backed off of valuing meeting in person, just as an example? Of course, these digital platforms have really built access for a lot of things, but there are times when they've replaced in-person meetings, and that has affected relationships. That's affected how we work together as groups of people who have different opinions. You know, the reality is when you're sitting behind a computer screen, you have a kind of a sense of maybe security or buffer that allows you to act in a different way than you would in person. You lose the opportunity to really empathize and see the whole picture. You know, when you're communicating, it's verbal, but it's also the body language. It's also the presentation of the words that you're using. And when you're on a digital interface, some of those features really get muted or taken out of the communication interaction, which makes it hard for us to know how to be a community with other people, which means being there when you can see something's not going right. Isolation, separation from others, and just all sorts of things that we need to really protect as we're continuing to see emotional health crises truly skyrocket and take a more intense toll on our community.
Yeah. So you were touching on some of the consequences that we could potentially be seeing long term. As an occupational therapist, what are the consequences that you're already seeing or predicting to continue to see?
I think one of the first things that is like a no-brainer, I guess, maybe from my perspective or for people who are in this field, it's the actual use of our body. So thinking about kids who are getting ready for kindergarten, there are countless hours of practice and things that kids do naturally through play that actually prepare them to be equipped for the skills that are required in a classroom. And that's something that I've seen with fine motor concerns. So being able to write, being able to sit upright in a chair, being able to manipulate different objects in the classroom. When you have for example, a tablet game, what you're experiencing in that game might be really fun, lots of bright colors, cool sounds, immediate reactions. So, but that's going to be more of a 2D experience. You miss out on sense, textures, other features of games that you just can't replicate on tablet. Whereas if you're playing with Play-Doh, Play-Doh has a very distinct smell. We all can recognize that
smell it right now.
Yeah, it brings some memories, right? As a texture, it requires a different force and use of your fingers. It requires different awareness of your environment. It just really is a more robust and rich experience. So are those digital interfaces bad? No. However, the cost of saying consistently that we're going to pick a digital interface for our child can be really high, because then you're giving up those opportunities to build these skills that really are naturally contributing towards successful whole body participation. But the one that I feel really strongly about is the social skills piece. This one really makes me really quite sad, being out in our community. And I have kids of my own who are young. And I understand that we've absolutely had to like pack up our food before we even eat it and leave the restaurant because it did not go well. So I understand the reality of it's just there's an ease that comes with the instant reward of a tablet. However, my 3-year-old, because she's watched her older siblings do it, now orders her own food at restaurants. And it's, I do contribute that to like choosing that battle of you are in a public space. We are a family. We value our time together as a family. We value treating others with respect and honor. And so in that practice, my kids are not engaged in a tablet while they're waiting. They are oftentimes being reminded of what's an appropriate behavior in a restaurant setting, what's appropriate for treating each other. They're kids, right? They still do the things, but I would much rather, equip them with those skills now than wonder in 10 years why we can't do these things as a family, or they can't go out in public or whatever it is because they don't have the skills. So that's one of the areas where I feel like there is a really, really big cost. And we're going to continue to see kids that grow without being equipped with how to do these basic things, because instead what was chosen on their behalf was a quick resolution for whatever this like perceived discomfort was of like, yep, being in public with kids is hard many times.
Yeah.
And that's because they're learning. It's not because they're trying to make your life hard. You are their training ground. They are learning with you, and that's your job.
And you kind of brought in like the instant gratification, and that's something our devices really are steered around, is we are constantly filled with that instant gratification. And that's kind of another one of the things where it's like, maybe we weren't naturally supposed to have all this instant gratification. So teaching your kids, you can sit at a restaurant and be bored, socialize, talk to the waitress or waiter. Those are awesome things that you've adopted. What else are you seeing as an occupational therapist with your kiddos of the effects of maybe some families that aren't making those decisions?
Yeah, I think it's something that by not actively choosing to draw boundaries there, you will passively fall into these patterns of the instant gratification. The families that I work with that we've worked with some of the boundaries with technology, they're not bad families. They're not bad parents. I don't meet parents often at all that I'm like, whoa, you're really trying hard to mess up your kid. That's not how we work. We care about our kids. We care about our families. So some of the other things that I'm seeing would just be thinking about the ways that we view a reasonable time to wait, which affects our awareness of our emotions, which affects our ability to have some grit when things are feeling uncomfy or unexpected or any of those things. And we are not supposed to constantly be in a state of comfort. If we were, we would really be lacking some beautiful inventions around us. There's a lot of things that have advanced in our world stemming from a discomfort or stemming from something that did not go well, a failure, a loss, a grief. And that's an extremely valuable place to learn. So I'm trying to remember what your question was exactly.
No, that was good. I mean, I feel like I thought of so many questions during that, but thinking about dealing with the emotions, truly that affects your body and the way your body works. Do you have anything to pour into that? Like, that was just a thought that came to me as you were sharing about emotions. I was like, wow, like there's such a tie between the emotion piece and how your emotions actually affect your body and maybe steer you down a path of needing to see an occupational therapist.
It's undeniable. The more I learn about it, first of all, the less I feel like I actually know. I mean, it's just the reality of the intricacy of our brain-body connection, of our spirit-body connection, of how we are intricate because that's a beautiful part of our experience as humans. The experience of having things easy for us prevents us from developing muscles, sometimes figuratively, sometimes literally, that will sustain us through future things that happen. I mean, we would love to sit here and say, yeah, I've already experienced all the hard things in life. But the truth is that we are constantly being equipped for what we're going to step into next, whether it's a season we choose or a season we don't choose. And if our practice and our learned behavior is to restart or avoid the situations, that's going to put us in a really difficult spot when it matters the most. Mm-hmm. And I, through personal experiences and through professional experiences, I'm a really firm believer that you need to grab the bull by the horns. Sometimes you just need to stand there nose to nose with the bull and say, all right, we're going to do this. It's going to suck for a little bit. And then we're going to walk out and say, I can't believe I did that. And now I know this about myself or this about other people. So it's really, I think that's the part that technology can really cause us to stumble, to be really frank, because it is everywhere, and it's a socially acceptable way of avoidance and of giving up on things that really do matter to us as a community and as individuals. And nobody's going to call us out on it because everybody does it. So that's the part where the active choices about, I'm not against technology. I am for use of our bodies and use of our community and use of our individual strengths and just realities, the challenges we have too. I am for those more than I am against technology or screen time.
Yeah, truly unplugging from your phone and plugging back into life and experiencing all the uncomfortable, awkward, hard things, the challenges, and just experiencing those emotions versus numbing yourself and getting just distracted. And your quick first thing you reach for is your phone because it's culturally acceptable now. Yeah, that was also good. So going back a little bit, you had talked about the boundaries you talk about with the families you serve. What are some of those boundaries that you encourage your families, your patients to adopt around technology use or just more using your body more?
Yeah, I mean, when we're talking about it, I usually start to introduce it with what is included in a routine that doesn't need to be there right now. And so occupational therapy really focuses on the functional pieces of our daily routines. So waking up to going to bed, even like the falling asleep part, we address during OT. So the biggest things is simplifying. And when it comes to things that are happening in our lives, simple doesn't always mean easy. It would be easy to, consistently use the TV as a babysitter for meal times. However, you're taking away a lot of opportunities for skill to, participate in family conversation, to start to develop some of those basic communication skills, to address attention, to, bring awareness to nutrition routines and all that kind of stuff. And so I just really encourage families that simplifying sometimes means that we're going way back to the basics and we're intentionally choosing that. There are thankfully more studies emerging about the true effects of screen time and screen time access on our brains and the way that it is changing our brains. That is supporting what I consider common knowledge at this point. And so I'm really grateful that there is that coming out. With some of those things, I think the modeling piece, it has to be a family priority, not just you, child are the one that's going to do this and nobody else is going to comply by this. That never works when it comes to like creating cultures or dynamics that are important to you. Targeting one person to carry that out is going to create shame, and it's going to create isolation and a lot of resistance generally. And so modeling it as a family, whatever the value is to you, is really going to be the biggest component to success. So when I'm working with families, thankfully, a lot of them are still at the stage where they can really start to lay some foundations of what's going to be important. So if you value relationships and other people, we talk about the time of day where you're going to be together the most. It really varies by family, and it really varies by seasons too. So if you're together most at dinner, then we talk about maybe you just need to start with like some conversation cards at dinner. And if you guys are used to watching TV at dinner, why don't you start with 5 minutes first with conversation, and then, gradually expand that time. The changes that will come will not seem like they are a great fit at first because it is new, not because it is bad. Just because it feels bad does not mean that it is bad. And especially when you're changing habits and behaviors. Some of the other just truths about screen time is that it does affect your sleep. And I think we can all agree that the sleep experiences of our community are at a state of, some concern. There's a lot of sleep issues amongst a lot of people. So just routines with like, what? It is important to have a window of time before you go to sleep where you're able to let your brain rest. And it is supported now that screen time, so TV, phone, computer, tablet, all of those are considered screen time. Screen time access affects your brain's ability to get to that restful state. So as a family, can we start to practice that you grow that window of when you're going to invite that rest and relax into your home and therefore into your bodies as individuals? I think the other pieces are just that awareness. A lot of us have slid into bad habits over the course of time, and we can all say, oh yeah, I actually know that that's really terrible. But once you start to examine some of the consequences, that usually creates a little bit more motivation of why we need to do what we need to do. It's not a shame-based thing. It's an awareness thing. It's I'm going to agree that this is a priority for me for now and in this moment, and to be able to act accordingly on it. So those are some of the biggest things I can think of.
So much like, it's like the nitty gritty and the meat and potatoes of what parents can truly do. And I just want to say thank you for everything you do to naturally encourage families and our young kids to use their body in a more holistic way so that we can have this longevity. And it's so awesome to hear you share all of it. So my last question that I have for you is, what is the hope that you have for our youth? Like, what skills do you hope for them to possess as they grow, use their bodies, develop their brains? What is your hope for the future for our youth?
Oh man, I'm just getting kind of teary-eyed just thinking about it, just because it's just such a reality that the youth that are coming up now. So, the people that are going to be adults someday really soon, I really hope that they are critical thinkers and able to say, you know what, I wonder why we do it this way. And in a way that is not challenging or trying to necessarily cause problems, but in a way that leads to exploration and ownership over who they are, over who they were created to be, over their identity, over their purpose in their families, over their purpose in their communities. And that allows them to also feel that recognition that they have everything that they need, within them, as far as all these pieces and parts of our bodies and our nervous system and our spiritual wellness and our emotional wellness, to connect the pieces and to use those things, even the negative things, even the hard things, to learn and then move forward, right? It's not about being stuck. It's not about staying put in the same place that you're at. It is really, truly about using the things that you've been given to be a part of something greater. So I think that's the biggest thing, is that if we continue to make quick sacrifices, we're going to suddenly wonder why we have no grit and why we can't handle even little hiccups. So I really hope that we learn to choose the hard way sometimes.
Yeah, choose the hard way. I love it. Well, thank you again, Lexi, for just joining us today and having such a real, open conversation. We've just appreciated it so much. And thank you for everything you do at Valley Christian Counseling and working with our families in our area and just building up our our strong kids. We appreciate it. So thank you again.
Thanks for having me.
Wow, what a great conversation. I can't help but think in my own life how easy it is to reach for technology when anything feels hard or uncomfortable instead of just dealing with those uncomfortable situations. We all waste a lot of time engaging in superficial screens rather than engaging in real and maybe hard situations. Like when you go to a restaurant and you see a family and everyone is just on their phones, modeling exactly how socially acceptable it is to just soothe ourselves with devices rather than engaging in conversation. And I love how Lexi even touched on how we're not meant to be in a constant state of comfort with these devices. And the convenience of having things easy for us all the time is preventing us from developing the resilience that will sustain us through the future. So technology may be a factor in this idea of engaging with people at a dinner table or grabbing the bull by a horn and just dealing with uncomfy situations. But we're not actually against technology. We're just for integrating it into our lives and our families in a healthy way. All right, folks, that's it for this episode. Thanks so much for listening today, and we'll catch you next time on the DMF Podcast. We're clocking out.